Here under the Creator, we have the different areas: UI templates, my custom templates and components, functions, and resources. And we can also find our different steps. So here we're going to focus on the components. Here we have the advanced components here at the top, for example. And then we have the AI Studio components, only one in there right now. And then the general. And you've noticed as we're hovering over these, there'll be a small bit of information here letting you know what that component is for. And underneath the general, we also have the PDF. Down below that, we have the PDF reporting portions that go on the very end step. So here first we have the barcode scan. So you have some options here when you click on it if you want to delete it, download it, open up the advanced editor if you're a developer. On the far right, we're always going to have our configuration. So here to scan it, show scanned, or use smart glasses. And then we have the codes. So these codes for the barcode scan, you can add more as well as remove some of them. And this is just some various code information that you can set up the codes to scan certain items with regex. Here you see in the middle, and some different areas to add further data. Under the data portion as well, you have global variables and custom variables that you'd like to place. So for example, if you would like to make a specific variable for outputting, you would do that there. Here the USB, we have the title that we provided, which is the default USB camera, instructions, and then what type of camera. So not set, internal, external. And if you want it to allow to take a picture. Next is the checklist component. So here we have the grid settings. So how many items per page. And then you have advanced settings here at the bottom for reporting. Show first only the required items, and those you see here. So they're indicated with an exclamation point on the far right of these variables on the left. So the left option 1, if you would place a exclamation point to that, then it would be a required item. Otherwise, it would be just a standard item here, as you see. And then the data again will be where you can output some of these items. So maybe an item that you check and you want to display it in the next component or next UI template. Here for the date picker, we have the format that you can put here at the top, as well as the title that you'd like to give. So for example, here the default is to please select a date in the format of year, month, and day. And if you want to put this in reporting as well, is down here at the bottom, and then data as before. Next for the documentation, here we have the selection menu, which is going to be translated into whatever language that user has. What they're wanting to do here, the documentation as the screen, as the title, and then what the start screen should be. So the start screen could be the selection menu where you pick one of the below options that are configured under documentation options here. So audio, video, picture, speech, or video. You can make it to where they have everything off except for a picture, and the selection menu starts at the picture so they don't have to say a couple commands. And then the default zoom level for when it accesses the device's camera. So if that's zoomed in higher, then once the camera opens to take a picture, it'll be zoomed in. And the data as well as before. For the file viewer, you're able to upload a document here. Once you do that, you can then select it under the drop down here. You can also decide if you want to convert that PDF to a PNG. The zoom level, as before mentioned, once you open up the document on the device, do you want to be zoomed in or not? This is helpful when the document is rather large. You'd like to be zoomed in to see the text. You also have then the preview location, if you want it to be top left or another area. A fixed view where you won't be able to look up and down essentially. So with the smart glasses, you have the option to move your head up or down, and this will then navigate on the document itself. So if you're zoomed in to a higher level than 1, then you're going to be able to look up and see the text at the top and so forth. And that's here apart with the head movements. So that's the default, being able to move the head, but you can also turn that off. Data as always. Under the image choice, you're able to give a title and also select images for the left or right. So you'll upload an image and then give that a label. And that label will be important as when you're setting the workflow up to navigate to either or direction, you want to know if that's called left image. Maybe it could be correct image, incorrect image, broken image, working image, something like that. So if you're showing machinery, if you're showing a process on which image is correct, you want to make sure that you have that configured in a way that makes sense for your worker making the workflow. And then advanced settings for putting reporting, and then of course the data as always. Here under the number input, we have the title, the speech prefix, or the result variable name. You have a couple different options here what you want to call it. So this variable name would be the number that's recorded, again for the person creating the workflow and the developer to know what that number is tied to. So if you record a number and you want to access that number as a variable, then that would be called the number output. The title that we have above is just going to be what the user sees when they see that component. The speech prefix is going to be what that person has to say, so number 10, number 8, and so forth. You then have decimal input settings, so a point, for example, when you're saying point, that'll put a period in there if you have decimals, and then the data as always. The OCR component, so here we have, for example, the user profile language that you'd like to place, depending on your server settings, the compression quality that you can change, whether you want to use a flashlight, the region of interest, the whitelist filter pattern, and some other steps here as well, so some of the color, so that you can also have some good configuration. For the paginated text, you have here again the title at the top where you can give a different title if you'd like, and then you have some lorem ipsum text here as default, but of course you would want to change that, and the maximum characters per page that you might want to change as well. And then reporting and data as always. For the questionnaire, we have again a title, the question you'd like to pose, an image if you would like to set one, but you do not have to, and then you can place some different possible answers. So we have 2 here, but you're able to add up to 4. And then you're also able to put at the bottom some different configuration for some of the resources to record or call a support or pause task or cancel. So you have the extended menu, which is very similar to or exactly the same as the UI templates possibilities. Other than those, you have then the data, as always, for mapping variables and more. Record measurement is going to be very similar to the last one, where you have a title and instructions rather than a question. And so you can say, for example, the default, please say record, followed by the measurement. You can also provide a measure icon if you'd like, but you don't have to. And then below that, you have the range settings. So for the range settings, you want to say what the minimum value is and the maximum. So here we have 0, 50, but then you have the ideal range. So once you set the ideal range, anything outside of that range is going to be listed on the component as red. And once you have anything inside that range, it would be listed as green. You can also require this ideal range. You have the measurement unit there as well, but down below here you can see that you can require. So if they're outside of that range, they will not be able to move on. For the selector, we have here again the type of option is said here in the title. You can then pick whether if you want to be paginated, grid, menu, or the scrollable grid menu, or not set. And then you have some options with regards to how many rows per page and columns per page. And then the display options here show IDs or default cancel, and then again the reporting. So here this is similar to the other one where you have the selectable options. So on the left is kind of the back end side, so the data, again an exclamation point on the end of this, option 1, 2, 3, or 4. That would make it something that's more of a required. For this item, I don't think it poses a difference though, and on the right would be what you'd say. So if you would want to put first option, but then that on the right side put maybe a car tire or door jam or something else, windshield, you're able to do that as long as you know and it makes sense for you to call it that. And of course you can add more or delete these as well. For the web, you're putting in the URL here at the top. If you want to enable JavaScript, you can. So you could put in this URL perhaps a little bit of JavaScript that you're wanting to utilize. You're able to put that URL in, enable the JavaScript, enable scroll buttons as well, so you can actually move a bit on that website, and then the scroll amount at the bottom you can provide. Here we have then the XAssist component, so enabling the call chain and having data. This component is able to be used if you're not using UI templates. So every UI template has the ability to access call support and therefore utilize XAssist. But sometimes you have a workflow that's custom built and that would then require you to have an X-Assist component so that you could access those calls. And then here we have the PDFs that you can place at the very end. So every time we went through those components and they said PDF reporting with the turning on or off, you would have to have this report attached to the very end like so that that information would then be sent to the PDF report. Otherwise, it'll just show up in the tasks menu of the workflow. In here, for example, if we would like to, we can connect all the components by clicking on the transition icon, and then we'd be able to go through and just connect one by one of those. And that's it.